I think there's probably like a brand of dad that just looks like Tony Shalhoub.
Hello, welcome to Make Me, the podcast where we force each other to do things we couldn't be bothered to do ourselves. I'm Julia.
And I'm Jordan. How are you feeling, Julia?
I'm feeling so good. It's episode 20, and it's our first guest episode ever.
I'm so excited. I got overly caffeinated for this, so I could sit here and be jittery the whole time.
And you're overdressed in your cat moon shirt. What's
it's
on
a
that
snake.
shirt?
It's a snake.
It's a snake. I thought it was
We're
one
a
of those,
very visual podcast.
I thought it was one of those howling at the moon shirts.
I'm actually wearing nothing from the waist down, and then I'm wearing a robe that's just way too short, and it shows the bottom of my butt cheeks.
Just the bottom. You know, I've been watching a lot of RuPaul's Drag Race, and that just seems like something that they would wear on the runway.
Yes, I'm very thrilled at the fact that you've been watching that, finally.
It's basically all I do now when I'm avoiding all my homework, and then I realize I just text you like 10 things per episode, and it's a season that you watched like 2 or 3 years ago, so you're just ignoring me probably.
Yeah, I mean, you're very much in the discourse that was happening like 7 years ago, which I'm like, go off, sis, but also
Okay, Willem is a bitch, and I stand by that.
All right, well, this is a Willem Stan account, so
no,
we don't say things like that.
Willem is a bitch. Fifi O'Hara is a bitch. They both are bitches on purpose. I'd rather you be a bitch by accident.
Season 4 is like the season of bitches, I feel like. They got like the bitchiest queens from all over the United States and put them on one season.
Also, Latrice is a bitch, but like in a way that seems like she's being nice about it. Yeah. Like when they all fucked up during Snatch Game, and then she started crying the next day being like, you guys were so unprofessional, it made me feel bad, and you all sucked ass.
The only thing I'll say about that is I also feel like she was just having hissy fit because she like wasn't like getting a lot of attention.
Yeah, because her Aretha was mediocre.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like Aretha would be a hard person to like make funny and big enough for like the key to winning Snatch Game is making people who don't know who the person is like care about them. You know what I mean?
And that's not by being Beyonce and farting.
Right, exactly.
Well, this isn't a RuPaul Drag Race podcast. We could have a whole spin-off show on that.
Yeah.
And apparently Cloverfield as well.
Yeah, of course. And Tony Shalhoub.
But I have really exciting news for you. I don't know if you know this, but we have a guest today.
I'm so excited.
So our first guest is Rebecca Ness. She is famously my boyfriend's friend from high school, and that's how I know her. She's an artist. She makes amazing paintings. You may have heard that Jordan has a crush on her because she's awesome at art. I'm sure she can give herself a better introduction, but please welcome Rebecca Ness.
Hey.
Welcome.
I'll start with the 5 Latrice G's. Good God,
yes.
girl, get a grip.
Yes. She's the best.
All the time. She is. And I am completely on the Willem Stan team. I have you listened to her podcast?
With the one with Alaska?
With Alaska?
Yeah.
So my like love of Willem goes like, I love you, I love you, I love you, and like, good God, girl, get a grip. And it like goes but I think she made season 4. Like I think she made it like so entertaining.
Oh, for sure. And when she got disqualified, I texted Julia and I wanted to hold over the fact that she wouldn't know what happened over her, but she looked it up and knew immediately. Right. The one thing I'll say about their podcast is it's great and amazing until Willem says anything political, because I also feel like Willem has very spotty politics.
Is Willem a Trump supporter?
No, but it's very much like
it's just cringe sometimes, where you're like scroll through the Twitter thread a little bit more, and like I feel like she like, I love her. Like I think she like sees a tweet and then like that's her opinion, and then she doesn't like read anything else. But Alaska is like very well read, and I think like very like aware. I think
Mhm.
she's more aware, and Willem is just
Yes.
kind of like this.
Willem is like
But
apparently, from what you're saying, like everyone's dad. They read a headline and that's what they believe.
yeah,
Yes, exactly. And also just can't see anyone's having an opinion outside of his own,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, that is clear from their performance on season 4. I want to pull into my life when Willem cries because she's like, I'm so sad that someone's going to get kicked off so I can win. All my friends are going to lose. I was like, what a bitch, but I have to do that.
no, I love it so much. My favorite, I know this isn't a RuPaul's podcast, but one more.
Maybe will be.
My favorite Drag Race delusion is when Valentina is like, this is my French vanilla fantasy. She's like, well, in my fantasy, you guys are all losing. I'm winning. So when she was like actively in the bottom.
Yeah. I use her
Like,
line
I
all the
need
time.
that.
Yeah, whenever like simple things happen to me, like I'll be like just like flustered about something. Nathan will be like, "What's wrong?" I was like, "This just doesn't align with my fantasy. This isn't what I thought."
Your line at the DMV. This is not my fantasy.
Yeah. There'll be like a bunch of dishes. He's like, I'll be like, I don't want. And he's like, "What's the problem?" I was like, "This isn't aligned with my fantasy. This is not what I wanted."
Yeah, welcome to real life.
Well, thank you
so
for having me on the pod.
of course, we're so happy to have you. We've been wanting to have a guest, and it's amazing that you're our first guest, and it's our 20th episode.
Wow.
I'm sure my introduction had a lot of spots in it, so if you would like to fill in the blanks, tell people who you are. They know that you're famously my boyfriend's friend.
She read that off of your Wikipedia page.
Oh yeah, that's the first line on my Wikipedia page. No, I think you did a great job. I make art. I know Gary, and that's all. That's all we all really need to know. But I went to Boston University where I got my painting degree in 2015, and then I just graduated from Yale School of Art to get my master's in fine arts in 2019. And so I've stuck around New Haven ever since, and so I live and work here, and I have a studio, and that's kind of my life.
So cool.
And
Yeah.
your paintings are huge. I've seen them, and I'm just like, I love how big they are.
Yeah, and the biggest paintings that I made were for my last show at Nina Meyer Gallery in LA, which just closed in August. And it was, I think, 7 feet high by 10 feet long. So that was the biggest paintings. And I made 2 of them. And those are the biggest paintings I've ever made. I'm not very good in the in-betweens. Like I need to either paint really, really small. Like when I applied to grad school, I just showed work that was like 5 by 5 inches, like
Wow.
works on paper. But like a mid-size, I'm not good at. Like the a foot or 2, like I can't do that very well. I need either big or really small.
I would argue that there's enough mid-size paintings out there that I think that you're okay within your niche, you know?
Okay, great.
I give you permission as somebody who doesn't
Thank
make
you.
any kind of art.
Go big or go home.
Yeah.
I feel like while you guys were talking about that, I was thinking about having a room that was just like you tear down the walls basically, and your drywall is Rebecca's paintings. Just like
That'd be
a
really
big
cool.
ass.
Well, I have a French vanilla fantasy of having like an entire room that's like maybe, I don't know, like the biggest museum room that you can think of, maybe like 40 feet long. And I just make kind of a painting that is one continuous painting that like spans like the walls, and like the corners with the walls hitting, like that is also like a painting moment, like something like turns around like really as well with the architecture. So I need to wait. I need to wait and figure out when and how, but I think that would be really interesting.
That's
That
cool.
would be so cool. I feel
Yeah.
like some listener has to have an empty warehouse that they're willing to offer up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make me go like make this huge painting.
We've made the listeners complain to IKEA, so I think we can make them buy you a warehouse space.
Yeah. And I got my rug.
What do they complain to IKEA about?
I was having an issue with IKEA because I ordered a rug,
Yeah.
and then it was just like back ordered, And then they finally got it into like my city's IKEA in Pittsburgh. And then it was still going to be like 10 days until my rug came in. So I wanted everyone to call their local IKEA just to generally do better. And then I went and bought the rug.
Better.
And then I had to send back the one I ordered because I needed it immediately because I'm impatient. And I thank all my listeners for giving me the strength to do that.
Oh, sorry.
No, Rebecca, you go.
I was listening to one of your episodes today, and I really liked the challenge that you said to all your listeners for everyone to find a therapist. So I really appreciated that. I really liked that.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I still stand by it. I had a really great conversation with my therapist this week. This is a RuPaul's Drag Race and therapy podcast. We plug those probably every episode.
Nice.
Don't forget Cloverfield.
Oh, and Cloverfield.
So Rebecca, what have you been doing during this quarantine? I know you're obviously painting all the time, but like, what else is going on? I know you have 2 awesome cats that I see on Instagram. What are they up to?
So their Instagram, I'll give them a plug. Holly, my girlfriend, she runs the Instagram. It's at Davies and New Hook. They're brother and sister cats. They're tuxedo cats, and they were named after Holly's her teachers in medical school. So she wasn't expecting to keep them, so she gave them those funny names, but then she was a foster fail. So we have those 2 beautiful cats, and then so I'd known that I had the show in LA for about a year before, so I had like a year to prepare. And a lot of the painting was happening in the beginning of 2020 because I had like other things that I needed to paint for. And so like right when I was in kind of like the throes of painting, COVID happened, and like everything changes. So my work was originally going to be these like more like public like group scenes of like people like all eating dinner together. Like I had this idea of like my friends all drawing at a table together, and that was going to be one of the big pieces. But then that was not, I wasn't able to do that anymore. Like as like practically I couldn't take the photos, I couldn't get everybody in like one place, but it also didn't feel like it was speaking of the moment. So I made a lot of paintings that kind of like dealt with COVID and with being solitary and isolated. And those are the pieces that went to the show in LA. Right now, as things are kind of, I mean, they're not getting better, but it's not as acute as it once was in Connecticut. And we can, have a little bit more of freedom. Like now and then I'm like taking photos of friends to maybe do paintings, but it's a slow roll from there.
What's like the gallery scene like right now? Like what's been going on? Are things opening, or is everyone kind of just preparing for when things are gonna open?
I think everybody I think it varies by the city. For example, when my show opened in LA, like 2 days before LA shut down completely again. So they were welcoming people by appointment, like you sign up online and then it's you and maybe one other party that's in the gallery space. And galleries are like depending on the size, it can be pretty big and pretty distant. But then it shut down completely. So for a good amount of time, like no one could really see the show. But in New York, which is like where like kind of my life kind of is now, it's on like a case-by-case basis, but most galleries are quote unquote open and you call ahead to reserve a spot. Like the MoMA and like the Whitney, those museums, those larger museums, those were closed for a really long time, and they recently like reopened which I think is so important because like people need something to do, and like I haven't like realized until COVID how much I missed seeing art that was not mine. Like I was like thirsty for seeing other art, because for artists it's like problem solving. It's like us like if we have a problem in the studio, like not being able to paint something, like I used to have the privilege to go to like the Yale Art Gallery and like figure out my problem in front of like a Picasso or something, and I didn't have that tool anymore. So that's really what I felt, but things are slowly opening up.
Yeah. Wow.
That sounds really hard to like have that be such a staple of what you're doing and then you can't do it.
I mean, it makes you realize, I think everyone, like I think about musicians all the time of like how they actively are not allowed to do their art, right? Because like if you're
Right.
like a saxophone player, think of all the air you're spewing out. So
Yeah.
it could be worse, but you know.
I heard something similar with comedians, like stand-up comedians. They're first
Mm,
similar to what you were saying. Like I had a whole hour before COVID hit that I just can't use now because it's about pre-COVID times that no one cares about at all. And then
yeah.
also like where am I gonna perform? So now I have all these like weird half-assed jokes that I'm gonna perform over Zoom and it's gonna be terrible. So like that hour's scrapped too.
And everyone's muted so you can't hear their laughs.
Yeah,
Like
that's horrible.
Yeah, that sounds
terrible.
very sad. I
Yeah.
remember listening to I was listening to an NPR um segment like at the
Hmm.
beginning of COVID about it was like this woman who's like a singer and she was like, I'm already in a business where I already have a finite amount of time in like in which I have a career. Now like
Yeah.
I'm losing a big chunk of that for
Oh
who knows
man.
how long.
And like actors too, if you're like a female actress, like as soon as you hit 30, your jobs are not as much. So who
Yeah.
knows when we'll get back. Oh.
I have a question for you, Rebecca.
Okay.
What would be like like where would be what would be like the most amazing space that you'd want to see your art?
Mm, that's a great question. Um, I have two answers. The first answer is kind of corny, but I feel like it would be really cool to like have a painting just go to space. Like you know how they like when you're like when you're on a spaceship, like there's some trash that they just kind of like throw out into space. Like I would love for like to have the first exhibition like in space.
That would be
Like I think
so
Oh,
cool.
I think that would be really cool. Like it would like burn up in a second the minute it hit any type of atmosphere. But like what if it didn't burn up and it just like kept floating out into space forever? I think that would be really cool. I would be the only artist who's ever shown in space.
There'd be like some weird alien planet where you're their god because they found this painting of yours.
that's so
Like,
funny.
what is this? Um, but the real answer, I guess, would be like a huge space, like to do what I was saying before of like the painting that kind of hits every corner and just covers every wall and is hundreds of feet long. And I think that
Yeah.
would be like I think that would be like a career making kind of thing. So I don't know if I could do it now or when I'm like 60 or something, but I think that's the real answer.
Yeah, that's cool. I think that both are doable. I think we can talk to our friend Elon Musk and get your art up there easy.
Oh my
He's a
God.
fan of the pod.
Yeah, is he the next guest on the pod?
Yeah.
I actually feel like we shit talk him for like we did for like 10 minutes on some episodes, so maybe we have to erase that.
I mean, let's be honest. If he ever found out that we were shit talking him on our podcast, the first thing that he would want is to be on our podcast to
Oh
like
yeah.
change the narrative.
I feel like Elon is down to pod.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, he's also down to smoke fat doinks on YouTube.
I mean,
Joe
if
Rogan.
you if you go to our podcast page on iTunes, the next one below us is the Joe Rogan Experience. So I'm just saying that we're not too far off.
You're right.
Nice.
Another question I have that's gonna tie into the premise of the podcast is what do you so like your job is to be in the studio and painting, which is a solitary act. What do you do to like fill the air? Do you listen to music? Do you listen to podcasts? Are you in complete silence? I just like what's going on there? Do you talk to yourself maybe? Do you sing? I don't know.
Sometimes. But I'm just mostly a podcast girl. Like I think I always prefer I think I like don't like the thoughts in my head all of the time.
Oh,
So I
same.
need someone else to talk. Yeah. So I need someone else to like literally just talk at me and talk to me. And it makes me feel like sometimes, I mean, I think everyone has said this about podcasts is when you've like listened to a podcast for so long, like you feel like you know them and that they're like your friends or something. So I have those podcasts that I keep going back to that I love. I also have been signed up for YouTube Premium, which allows you to like just have like YouTube videos play and you be able to lock your phone and just keeps playing. So I've been getting into like really weird ASMR YouTube holes. I I listened to this woman who runs like gemstone therapy sessions. So it was an hour and a half of her. She had diamond spray, and she would go,
oh my God.
like around this like woman who was just like on that she totally like hired like from somewhere to just like sit on a bed and just like have gemstone therapy done to her. And she's like, this gemstone is telling me you have digestive issues. And it's like, and then the woman was like, I do. So I've been either getting into YouTube holes for the past 6 months or listening to kind of just podcasts are my thing.
You're definitely in good company with wanting to listen to podcasts to fill your headspace that you don't want to hear. Jordan and I do the exact same thing.
You guys do? Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we went as far as to fill our own headspace with our own voices. So it's quite meta.
You guys like the sound of your own voices?
Well, someone that Jordan met recently said that I had the perfect radio voice, so now I do like my voice on my recording.
From listening to your podcast, you guys do have very good podcast voices. It's very smooth.
Thank you.
What podcast do you listen to?
I have been listening to Last Podcast on the Left for like 5 or 6 years. I love them. They're kind of like my main booze. It's like, I don't know if you guys have listened to it, but it's kind of like true crimey, like sometimes UFO. It's this comedian Henry Zabrowski and his 2 friends, and it's so well researched. Like it's like amazing. There's like 2-3 hour episodes, and they go everything from serial killers, UFOs, true crime, all that good stuff. Another good one that I've been listening to a lot is Reply All. And that's kind of about kind of like the tech world and like issues that pop up there. They have a really good episode lately about QAnon. So that's kind of what I've been listening to. Yeah.
Jordan,
Nice.
Do you listen to Last Podcast on the Left?
No, I've heard of it though. I do listen to a lot of true crime podcasts, and I don't know if you've experienced this, but sometimes you can get really burned out on true crime.
Oh yeah.
So
what I like about Last Podcast is they do silly things. Like the UFOs ones are like so silly. Like and the Henry Zabrowski's an actor, so he like comes up with these characters for like these different like if they did like he does different impressions of like I don't know, like Ted Kaczynski or something, and they're like really funny. So they have a really good amount of like the hard stuff, but also some comedy as well. Because I get burnt out too.
nice.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. So before we get into the Make Me, do you guys want to take a quick break?
Yes, please.
All right. See you soon. Hey all, you need to check out this handmade earring designer Hammy makes, aka my friend Hannah. Hannah makes polymer clay earrings that are amazing. She makes such fun shapes and colors. I'm honestly thinking about re-piercing my own ears just to get a pair. Check out her work on her Instagram @HammyMakes or visit her Etsy shop where you can get your own. You can find a link in the show notes. Bye! Welcome back, everybody. I hope you guys all had a good break. I'm very excited about this next portion of the podcast because we actually get to figure out what we made Rebecca do. Rebecca, what did we make you do this week?
All right, so your make me for me was to listen to the entirety of YouTube's album Songs of Innocence, which was the automatic download that we all got on our iPhones in like 2014.
Yeah. Did either of you listen to that album prior to this?
Hell no.
I didn't, just on principle, which I feel like everyone did, right?
Yeah. I'll read or I'll let you guys know. There was a lot of controversy around this album, and I just remember waking up one day and it was just there. And I remember just feeling so violated by the fact that I didn't choose to do this.
You know how people, like, when they're telling their life stories, there's like always an event where like, and from that day on, everything was different. That's how I feel like this album was.
Like, where were you when U2 invaded your
Yes.
Exactly. Okay, so a few fun facts about U2. One, they started, the band formed in 1976 when they were teenagers, when they were attending the Mount Temple Comprehensive School, which I'm assuming is somewhere in the UK.
Oh, yeah. So for some reason I thought that was in Connecticut.
Kind of sounds like something from Connecticut. Can you guys name all 4 members of U2?
Well, we got Bono.
Bono and the Edge.
Yeah. And then there's Adam Clayton and Larry Mullen Jr. I did not know that there was a man named The Edge.
Yes.
And he has such dad energy. Like, such dad energy. I love it.
He's the original edger.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I'm not like a big U2 fan. So all of this information was brand new to me.
Then you're the perfect person to do this history lesson.
But I focus mostly on this album because I just feel like it was such like a big thing. So the Songs of Innocence album came out on September 9th of 2014. And it was the whole album was actually commissioned by Tim Cook.
What?
Oh.
It was supposed to be this whole thing because it was like when they made a big announcement for like some new MacBook or something.
Right.
So U2 was part of like that, of this season's like announcements, you know?
Oh, like when they do that big conference, you know, where they like, that's great.
When I worked at Apple, they called it the event.
Oh. So is this just like Tim Cook like fanboying, basically?
It kind of seems like it, because also I feel like in 2014 there could have been somebody way more interesting that he could have like commissioned an album from,
like
that
Kesha.
People would have cared about. Yeah, like Kesha. But it was downloaded immediately on all Apple devices in 119 countries worldwide.
Holy shit.
They said that it reached 7% of the planet, which doesn't seem like a huge amount, but thinking about like what the other 93% is, that's a kind of a big amount.
Well, it's like a huge number of people.
Yeah. It was considered the largest album release of all time.
But that's cheating. That's not fair.
And it got some pretty nasty reviews. The Washington Post called it rock and roll dystopian junk mail. Slate called it extremely unsettling.
Wow.
And members of Pink Floyd and the Black Keys said that it devalued music.
Oh my God.
Like as a whole.
Can you imagine if you did something and like the people, your colleagues said that you devalued the whole, like the whole form?
You said that publicly too, like.
And then I read a whole article. It wasn't like a great news source. I don't even remember what it was about it. But here it says, while Bono told NPR he was unaware of the automatic download option in October, he described the kerfuffle as, we wanted to deliver a pint of milk to people's porches, but in few cases it ended up in their fridge and on their cereal. But most people were like, I'm dairy free.
I mean, way to be self-aware though.
And then I looked up on Pitchfork because I was just curious what Pitchfork thought. Not that I've ever gone to Pitchfork anyway for anything, but I just figured this would be a good place to start. But it got a 4.6 on Pitchfork, which I'm pretty sure is out of 10. Does anyone know if that's true?
Yeah, let's say it's out of 10.
It's got to be, because this is the first line of the entire review was, U2 have aligned with their old friends Apple to insert Songs of Innocence into all the libraries without consent. This indisputably queasy approach to the surprise release gambit might be the most interesting element about the band's latest album.
Ooh.
Wow.
So people were not very happy.
I wonder what like U2 fans say about it. Like if they like the album musically, but they don't like how it was released, or like how would the album fare if it wasn't just thrown at everyone?
And like, why that is interesting, right? Like, did they release it via this way because they didn't think that like people would download it on their own volition? Like, that's like
Right.
interesting, right?
But
I don't
Apple
know.
had to create an entire page dedicated to the removal of the album. They had to make a page about step by step how to go into your purchase, telling you that like how to delete it, which I thought was
I
very.
remember doing that.
Also,
It
can you
like said something
imagine
along the
like
lines of.
sorry, you go.
It said something along the lines of like, if you're not very happy with YouTube's music, you can delete it, blah 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 blah, and it like goes step by step. It was funny.
Like it was your
Nice.
fault for not liking it.
Just like gaslighting you into
I was
it.
gonna
Yeah. I can't imagine like thinking my music was so good that every single iPhone user should have it.
No,
Yeah.
I wonder what Tim Cook's take on the album was.
I feel like Tim loved it. If he's like this much of a fan to do this, I feel like he probably loved the music, but I bet he's a little embarrassed.
Yeah. Okay, so now I'm curious. Do you align with all of these raving reviews?
So I have very specific views on this album after listening to it 3 times today.
3 times?
3 times. So I think that the music is absolutely terrible. The thing is like when I don't know about you guys, but when I listen to an album for the first time, I'm like trying to like, I know that something isn't gonna like some songs take a while to like sink in, right? And then sometimes there are things that are just like junk food and they pop out right away. And so I gave the album the benefit of the doubt by being like the first time I had no junk food, like nothing like popped out at me. Like it was pretty boring. I was like checking to like see like what song I was on basically of like when it would be over. And then the last song with Leaky Lee was actually not that bad. I think that was pretty interesting. Maybe just because I like Leaky Lee. So then I listened to it a second time, nothing, because I was like trying to wait for something to sink in. I never really got anything. Like I think that it all seemed like it was like hearkening to a certain like rock past of like the 90s or something. It did not seem that it was current at all. And so I actually like looked into the lyrics a little bit to kind of see if it would like help me like empathize with the music or something. And the lyrics I love way more. So I have 2 examples. So the first song is Raised by Wolves. And it's like, why would you choose that title? Like when I was listening to the song Raised by Wolves, I was thinking like, this is kind of cringe. Like this is very like weird man energy of like, I just want to be in my like Irish book or something. But when I like read the lyrics, it's all about an Irish car bombing in the 70s.
Holy shit, what?
It's all about how like humanity is terrible because they were in in Dublin. I don't know if that's Northern Ireland or just Ireland, but
I have no idea.
you know, so it was all about like these like Irish car bombings and about like this son like losing his father and like 33 people dying. And I'm like, this type of artistry in the lyrics and like telling a story, I do not get from the song at all. And then for the second example is called Sleep Like a Baby Tonight. And it's all about a pedophile priest.
Oh my
No!
God. Why did
Bono.
It's
this?
a terrible song, but like talking about a really interesting like societal problem, much like terrorism in the 70s in Ireland, and like it did not come off in the music. So I think that's a total failure. Speaking as an artist, you need to communicate. You need to communicate well your point, like in art. Like you can be right, like painting about the most interesting thing in the world, but if you can't communicate it to your audience, like everything is null and void. So
Also,
I
like,
also yeah,
sorry,
I
but
will. You go.
Tim Apple saying like, "This is the album we need to give to the world," and the first two songs are horrible tragedies, and he's like, "This is the best music. Everyone's gonna love it."
Maybe the album was a metaphor for itself, and that like this album was the car bomb. Were you are you a U2 fan before this? Does this seem like
Never.
something that aligns with what your understanding of U2 is? Because personally, I feel like it's bad, and I'm like, yes, and what else can you say? Like, not like you, but like, of course it's bad. It's U2.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wait, some people really love U2 though.
Name 5.
Scott Aukerman.
That's true.
That's one. But I feel like from what I know about U2 is it does seem on par because they have that song Bloody Sunday that like plays on like classic rock stations, and it's about some like another horrible tragedy in Ireland.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's not to like critique U2, this incredibly successful band, but I think they need to work on their messaging and like how they like communicate in their songs, because I think it's all about tone, right? If you're like just telling all of these messages but in this same tone that is not very like original, like I hope U2 doesn't cancel me, then like I'm not like I'm not going to be like intrigued to like listen to what you're saying. So yeah,
What do you
those are
think
my
is what do you think is the best scenario in which one person should listen to Songs of Innocence?
when you're told to.
No other times apply.
It's so funny.
I think if you're that's a great question, because I don't know, because I don't think that there is I think like, because I think the better things that U2 have done have been like these more like activism like concerts, right? Didn't he do a lot of like, didn't he make Red and like like did all of the work
He did Live Aid, yeah.
Yeah, like I think those are the things to go to U2 for. Maybe not this album. This album seems like something that they tried, and like we all make things that don't succeed sometimes.
That's really interesting because like before I knew the history that Jordan gave us, I would think, you know, maybe U2's music is just bad, but also now knowing that someone commissioned them to write an album, I bet that's really hard to do when they're like not feeling the artistic spark themselves. So I want to know what like some old U2 dad thinks.
I just feel like if they were going, okay, Tim Apple commissions this band to do this, I feel like you shouldn't experiment. I think that you should do as much as you can that is like resembles the things that made you famous, and just stick to that. You know what I mean? Because my other theory is that Tim Cook wanted to like have creative license over it. Because like for some reason he's rich and he thinks that he should be able to do those kind of things. Like if your dad was like, I'm gonna make a rock and roll album and like this is the kind of things I want to do, that's like what happened.
Yeah, maybe. I would be really interested to see kind of like the creative conversations that happened between them, and if like U2 came to them first, or it seems like Tim came to them first and wanted to do that. So I don't know. I think it's like a really interesting question of like, how do you communicate your art? And like maybe because just I don't know U2, like I don't get all like the intricacies and kind of like their music and their messaging. I guess they worked with like some like really famous producer for this, which means something. But I think in order to like appreciate this album, I would have to do more of a U2 deep dive to figure out where it fits in the canon.
Which I don't feel like is something you should have to do. Like you should be able to, as a consumer, like listen and enjoy an album on face value and with the deep dive.
This conversation is reminding me of like when I took college art classes, and we would do critiques, and like there'd be the one person who like whose message just like wasn't coming through, and then they would like just like basically yell at everybody in the critique about how like they just aren't looking at it correctly, and you like everyone's just trying to be like the nicest way possible. Yeah, like we're all reading something different, so I think that you just need to change something about that, or maybe change the messaging, because I feel like it might be easy just to say that we were right, and then everyone would get it, and then we would all applaud you.
In my workshops in my classes now, we are specifically not allowed to talk when our essays are being critiqued, because there's always someone that's like defending every comment and like feels like they have to respond to every comment. And they're like, well, actually, I meant this. And I'm like, well, if you meant that, then say that.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. At Yale, we had similar critiques where the artists couldn't talk for the first 20 minutes.
That's smart.
Yeah.
Were you painting when you listened to this?
I was painting a newspaper. I don't know if that's any, I don't think it affected my art, because I was going to paint that today anyway. But I did find myself like painting felt a little slower.
I was curious if for some reason, for like the 3 hours in which you listened to this album 3 times, there's just like a part of your painting that just is now bad or like not up to par.
No, I don't. I'm being really hard on the album, but I think I just wasn't like inspired by it, and I was more inspired in like I did like another like YouTube hole of listening to people critique the album.
Nice.
And people felt like similar to me as well. But so that was more fun to listen to other people talk about the album.
I'm curious if you can say, just like as a challenge, like 3 good things about the album, if possible.
I feel really bad. I'm like shitting on it. But...
No, don't feel bad. I think you two deserves this. I just want to know as like a fun exercise if it's possible.
So I think the lyrics are beautiful, and I think this like I'm interested in art that talks about a moment of time in history. Like I think like art is an amazing way to make like a time capsule. So like looking back on, you know, Philip Guston's paintings of like, I don't know, riots in LA, like we know that moment in time, and like it means so much more for it to be like communicated through art. So I think in the lyrics, they did an amazing job of that. Like I read through all the lyrics, they're like beautifully written and like really visual. So I would say that. I also think that the song with Leaky Lee was really good. I really like Leaky Lee. I like that they brought her in, and I feel like it means a lot to kind of have this kind of old white male band bring in this like newer female like electric pop star or something. I think that was interesting and like progressive. And then there was synth on one of the songs that was pretty good, but I forget which one. So they did some new things.
Nice. Good. I'm glad to hear it.
Those are good compliments, actually. I feel like they'd be like, hearing that their lyrics are actually good means they're not just like 2-bit hacks. Like they actually are artists. They just produced a bad album.
It just all sounds similar, but like every song is about a specific thing, which I really like. It's not all about just like bland whatever.
Do you think this is a almost complete non sequitur, but when you said that it gave off like weird man vibes, that resonated with me. I feel like there's plenty of bands that like we're told are really good, but they give off weird man vibes, and like people that aren't just like straight white men don't care about.
Yeah.
With that in mind, which this is a leading question now, but like what kind of music does your dad's listen to? Because my dad is famously a Train guy. He loves Train, and he loves like Norah Jones. And I think he like knows U2 because he like grew up listening to rock and roll and like some of their music, but isn't like a U2 stan. And I just like knowing what other dads listen to.
Jordan, you go first.
Okay, so my dad is a big Eagles guy. My dad loves Pink Floyd.
Wow.
But also loves like Simon and Garfunkel, Woody Guthrie. I remember
Ooh.
just like those 4 specifically, we had like the greatest hits albums in the car to listen to.
I feel like Eagles is right up there with like Weird Man vibes.
Yeah.
My dad like doesn't listen to music. Like he's never
What?
talked about music. He's only listened to NPR. Like no music at all. It's very
We
Wow.
weird.
love a liberal
Yeah.
dad.
Yeah, we stand a liberal dad, but he I've never known him to like music. My mother is the big music
Wow.
person. She's like the Woody Guthrie, like Simon and Garfunkel type person, Carly Simon, that stuff. But my dad, nothing.
It's so funny. My dad is super conservative, but also loves Woody Guthrie. And I'm
That
trying to
makes no
figure out
sense.
like
He's like
where,
so good.
yeah. And my dad
Yeah.
also listens to NPR. And I'm like, I don't know what is happening in your head that makes you do this, but there it is.
From what I know about your family, Rebecca, everyone in your family's awesome, and like Gary constantly is like, and there's the house that Rebecca's dad designed, and her brother did this
Oh,
cool thing, and your family seems awesome.
that's very sweet. Yeah, my dad designed. My father's an architect, and he designed a lot of the houses that are in our hometown. So that's nice that Gary remembers them.
That's super cool.
Yeah, whenever we drive around the neck, he's like, that one, that's the cool one, that's the best house here.
Because I would always point that one out too. I'm like, he did that.
It's so cool. Also your brother, I know this is about you, but your brother did the graphics for Megan the Stallion on
He did?
SNL.
Shut
Did.
up. The ones behind the ones
Mhm.
behind her. I can't wait to tell my boyfriend about that. He's the one who pointed them out to me and wanted me to look at
Yeah.
them. That's so cool.
He's an artist as well. He does like graphic arts. So he did Travis Scott's Astroworld tour. He did he did the SNL Megan the Stallion. He's gonna kill me because I'm gonna forget all of them.
Imagine
But, like,
Dragons.
Imagine Dragons, he did their tour. He's at Ness Graphics on Instagram. I'll give him a little plug. But he's doing really cool and amazing things as well. And he now and then like asks me to do certain things or like draw something out for him, which is nice.
That's cool. I have
What
a
a
question.
family.
Tying in all of these things almost together, if you two were to come to you and say, Rebecca, we found your Instagram and we love your art. Please, 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 please design an album cover for us. What would
Of
you
course.
say?
Of course I would.
And then you
Like-
text us to immediately take down the episode.
Yeah. No, I value critique up front. I would be like, guys, your lyrics are great. I'm sure that your music has gotten better since Songs of Innocence. Let's make an album that communicates everything in your, or album cover that communicates everything in your lyrics. I would totally do it.
Yeah.
I
Do you
would
think
pay for that. I would let them download that for free on my phone, and I would pay for it.
I was like, I'd buy that on vinyl just to have the art. Would you have to like, I mean, this is probably an obvious question, but would you have to listen to the album first to then create around it? And have you done anything like that before?
I think so. I haven't done anything like that. I used to collaborate with this percussionist where he would like play the bigger version of the xylophone. I forget what it's called, but it's like a huge xylophone. And he would play, and I would do like automatic painting while he played, which was kind of fun. I did that in Boston. I would totally do that again. We were talking about, collaborating again, but I've never done any album covers, but I would love to. It sounds really fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
That is cool. So do you have any final thoughts on this U2 album? Any like emotional trauma you'd like to get out on the table before we close?
No emotional trauma. I am not traumatized by this album at all. I really enjoy the stories that were told. I didn't enjoy the sounds as much, but the stories were great. And the last song with Leaky Lee, I would put on a playlist for something.
Cool.
Well, there you go. That's like a huge takeaway.
Yeah, that'll be the caption of this episode. Do you have a rating system for the album?
Oh, I guess we could do I could give it 3 out of 10 Willems.
Oh, full circle. I love that.
Wait, so is that a 3 out of 10 for the album? I also want you to critique us. Like, how is the Make Me in terms of like, because sometimes we do like, we'll rate the movie that we watch, but also like Jordan gave me one that I really didn't like, so I'm gonna give it a 2, but like an 8 overall, something like that.
Oh, okay. I think it was a 10 out of 10 Make Me. I thought it was very funny, very clever, because I think it all ties it into like us, like millennials, like having a phone. We remember everything that happens to it that makes it like jarringly different. And so when we all were like faced with this album on our phones, I'm thinking, I don't know, it happened in 2014. So like, I feel like in the dining hall, I was probably talking to people about it. And like, I feel like everyone was as well. So I think it kind of brings us all into like culture, technology, a moment in history we all remember. 10 out of 10 for that.
10 out of 10 Willems. You heard it here.
Well, thank you for being on. You've been an amazing first guest, and this talk was invigorating. Do you have any plugs or anything you'd like to promote? Sure.
People can go to my website if they want to look at my work. It's www.rebeccannessart.com. I also have an Instagram, which is just @RebeccaNessArt. And so that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. And maybe we'll have you again in the future and we'll make you listen to another shitty album.
Yeah.
I love it. I would love to be a reoccurring guest of like questionable albums.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Our resident music expert.
Yeah. One thing I forgot to tell you beforehand, do you have a Make Me for our listeners?
Yes, I think that I'm going to make everyone listen to the Cats soundtrack, but for the new movie.
Wow.
That's torture.
The one with like Rebel Wilson and like Taylor Swift. So that's my Make Me.
I feel like legally we're not allowed to do that, but great to hear, y'all.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next time.
I love you. Bye-bye. Hey guys, it's Jordan and Julia. Thanks for listening to this episode. We hope you enjoyed it.
For content related to this episode, follow us at Make Me Pod on Instagram. And you can hear episodes each week on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you find us anywhere else, please let us know.
You can also send us your questions, comments, Make Me suggestions, pictures of your dog, or requests for unlicensed medical advice to makemepod@gmail.com.
And don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, rate, etc., etc. That's how we get discovered.
Please, we need to be clicked.
But for real, leave a comment so we know you love us.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.